Here is something that should bother every single one of us. Enormous amounts of money are going uncollected year after year. The National Council on Aging has put a number on it, approximately $30 billion annually that people are simply never receiving. And I want to be very direct about something. The people at the top of the income ladder are not the ones leaving that money behind. Those individuals have entire professional teams surrounding them, attorneys, CPAs, lobbyists, whose sole purpose is to ensure that not a single dollar of available government money slips through their fingers. For everyone else, that kind of support system just does not exist. And that is precisely the problem we are committed to addressing right here on this channel. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. These systems are not designed to walk you through every benefit you are entitled to collect, especially in today's environment. That has been an ongoing challenge for a long time, and it is the core reason I created Social Security Simplified and show up for these live Q&A sessions every single day to help you navigate a system I spent several decades working inside of firsthand. But there is now a completely new layer of difficulty sitting on top of everything else. Misinformation has always been a problem online, but with the rise of artificial intelligence, the number of bad actors flooding this space has exploded. Someone figured out that retired Americans spend significant time watching YouTube, and so now we have content appearing from every direction around the world, covering Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, retirement income, you name it. And a huge chunk of it is being generated by AI with no real knowledge or accountability behind it. I actually came across one just yesterday. A viewer sent it my way, and I have to be honest with you. This video looks like a carbon copy of me. Let me pull it up so you can actually see what I am talking about. Take a look at this. This person is 100% not real. Now, you may or may not be able to catch every detail clearly from here, but if you look closely, there is an American flag positioned behind him, exactly like the one I have behind me. There is also a globe in the background, though it is somewhat difficult to see. The lighting is set up in a similar way to mine. His chair resembles mine, just rendered in a different color. He is wearing a blue shirt, and if you have watched this channel for any length of time, you know I am almost always in a blue shirt. I actually made a deliberate choice to wear something different today for exactly this reason. And look at the microphone setup. He has got two separate stands for his mic. This is entirely, completely AI-generated content. The thumbnail promises huge changes arriving by April 17th, and the video itself runs 17 minutes. Want to know what those 17 minutes actually deliver? Practically nothing. It is 17 minutes of vague, meandering content that provides zero actionable information to anyone who watches it. And yet, 160,000 people have already watched it. Those viewers are now anxious and confused, asking themselves what they are supposed to do about these so-called major changes, whether they need to pick up the phone and call Social Security, whether they need to physically go down to a field office and take action. The answer is no. None of that is necessary. And we are going to continue seeing this type of content multiply, videos built entirely on fear tactics designed to generate views. Now, I want to be transparent. I do use urgency in my own content, but everything I present is anchored in verified, documented facts. Take this example. Because Congress has failed to take any meaningful action across multiple decades, Social Security benefits are genuinely heading toward a reduction. That is not a fear tactic. That is established, documented reality. The Social Security Trustees report and congressional findings both confirm it. In approximately 81 more monthly payments, everyone's Social Security check is projected to be cut by roughly 23%, because our elected officials have done nothing to prevent it in 40 years. That is the reality, and I am going to keep repeating it until I run out of breath, because we have had 4 full decades to solve this problem and have done absolutely nothing about it. I will keep bringing it up until either the cut actually happens and becomes history, or we somehow manage to prevent it. I know some people in this community are worn out from hearing it. I get that completely. But I am going to keep saying it because 40 years of zero action on something this critical demands that someone keep speaking up. All right, let us also address some of the other misleading content making the rounds out there right now. There are obviously fabricated videos circulating about stimulus payments and tariff rebates and similar topics. Go ahead and raise your hand if you actually received any money from the stimulus, the Doge dividend, or the tariff rebate that was supposedly going to return collected tariff revenue directly back to American households. Right, nobody's hand is going up. Then there is the COLA situation. The moment the 2026 cost of living adjustment was officially announced at 2.8%, I said publicly that within one day, somebody would already be posting content speculating about what the 2027 COLA might turn out to be. And sure enough, a viewer sent me exactly that kind of video almost immediately. Here is the straightforward truth. We will not have any information about next year's COLA until September at the earliest. Anyone discussing it before that point is simply guessing and filling time. Do not give those videos your attention. And then on top of all of that, there are videos out there, produced by people who genuinely should know better, claiming that Social Security is actively monitoring your personal bank accounts and tracking your travel abroad. For the overwhelming majority of recipients, that is completely and entirely false. Here is the critical distinction you need to understand. If you are receiving SSI, Supplemental Security Income, that is a fundamentally different situation. SSI is not the same thing as regular Social Security retirement income. SSI is a needs-based welfare program specifically for people with low income and limited resources who are either disabled or 65 years of age or older. It is funded through general government revenue, not through the trust fund. It is not retirement income. It is SSI, a welfare-based assistance program that happens to fall under the administration of the Social Security Administration. Because SSI functions as a welfare program, there are built-in reporting obligations from the moment you enroll. If any income comes your way, you are required to disclose it to Social Security. If you plan to travel internationally, you are required to notify them in advance. Social Security has taken a more proactive stance on both of these areas, essentially communicating. If you want to continue receiving this assistance, you are granting permission for periodic bank account checks to verify whether any unreported income has come in. There is also a newer development. If you leave the United States for longer than 30 days, your benefits can be suspended. That is a relatively recent policy change. But for everyone outside of SSI, people collecting standard retirement benefits, spousal benefits, divorced spousal benefits, surviving spouse benefits, or SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, Social Security is not reviewing your bank account and is not tracking your international travel, not officially, not legally. What is happening outside of official channels in the current environment is harder to say, but by the rules as written, they are not permitted to do any of that. All right, now that we have cleared away some of the false information floating around out there, let us get into what this is really all about. Answering your questions and actually helping people. Monica writes in, "My husband turned 67 on December 29th and is planning to retire sometime after that date. Can he go ahead and start the retirement paperwork before his birthday arrives, or does he need to wait until after turning 67 to begin the process and receive Social Security?" Absolutely. Beginning the process about 3 to 4 months ahead of time is perfectly fine. If he is already enrolled in Medicare, this becomes very straightforward because his information is already in the system. Whether he signed up for Part A and Part B together at age 65, or just Part A on its own, activating the actual retirement payment. at this point is quite simple because the full application process has already been completed previously. But I want to flag something here. What is motivating this particular question? That is what I am genuinely curious about. If you have a good relationship with your ex-husband and you are asking on his behalf simply because you are a caring person, that is wonderful, and that makes complete sense. But if you have been asking because you were under the impression that your own benefits cannot start until he files for his and you have been waiting on him, then there is a real possibility you have already lost money that was rightfully yours. There is a provision called independently entitled divorced spouse benefits. It is quite a mouthful. The essential point is this: it does not matter whatsoever whether he has filed for his own benefits. As long as you were married for at least 10 years, you are currently collecting on your own earnings record, you are at least 62 years old, and he is also at least 62 years old, you have the right to file. One final critical detail specifically for this provision. If you have been divorced for a minimum of 2 years, he does not need to have filed at all for you to claim. If you have been sitting and waiting for a year or two for him to file so that you could then claim divorced spousal benefits on his record, you may have left real money uncollected. Hopefully, that has not been the case. The core rule is this: if the marriage lasted 10 years and you have been divorced for 2 and you are collecting on your own record, the other party does not need to be receiving benefits. They simply need to be at least 62 years old, and they will never know you filed on their record. It has absolutely no effect on their own benefits, their current spouse's benefits, or anyone else in their life. Next question: why does SSI stop when a spouse in the household gets approved for SSDI? This question actually has 2 distinct answers depending on exactly who we are talking about, so let me address both possibilities. First possibility: if the same individual is receiving SSI and then their own SSDI application gets approved, if that SSDI monthly payment exceeds the SSI maximum of $994, then SSI stops. The reason is straightforward. The ceiling for SSI is $994 per month, and once your SSDI payment surpasses that amount, SSI is no longer applicable. Second possibility: if one member of a household is on SSI and then the other spouse gets approved for SSDI, because SSI is a needs-based program, the agency evaluates the complete household financial picture, which includes all income entering the home from any source. When the other spouse begins receiving SSDI, that counts as income flowing into the household. Here is a simple way to think about the underlying principle. If someone is receiving SSI because their income and resources are very limited, and they then marry someone with considerable wealth, do you genuinely think SSI continues? Of course it does not. Obviously, SSDI is not equivalent to millionaire-level wealth, but the same foundational logic governs the situation. Someone else asks, "I am turning 67 in October. What would be the smartest time for me to file?" Very similar situation to the one we just covered. If Medicare is already set up, activating your retirement payments is very simple. Plan on filing roughly 2 to 3 months before you want payments to begin. But there is an important point worth making here, and it applies to the previous question as well. The year in which you reach your full retirement age is particularly significant for people who are still working. A common misconception is that earning income while receiving benefits will cause those benefits to be reduced or withheld. Here is how it actually works. Prior to reaching full retirement age, there is an annual earnings cap. This year, that limit is $24,480. But since you are reaching age 67 this year, your earnings limit for the months covering January through September is actually $65,160. And from the moment you officially turn 67 in October, you can earn as much as you want from any source. There is no earnings cap of any kind after that point. Here is the reason I bring this up. If you hold off and wait until you turn 67, yes, you receive your full monthly benefit amount. But if you file a few months earlier, your monthly payment will be slightly smaller, perhaps $10, $20, $30, $40, or $50 less per month. But you will also collect checks for April, May, June, July, August, and September that you simply would not have received otherwise. That adds up to 6 additional payments. If each of those checks is $2,000, you have an extra $12,000 in your hands that you would not have had. Yes, the ongoing monthly amount is slightly reduced going forward, but you received $12,000 up front that would have otherwise stayed uncollected. That is a real financial trade-off worth weighing carefully. One additional note: if you reached out to Social Security with any kind of inquiry a month or two ago, that contact could qualify as a protective filing date, which might mean you are entitled to 7 or 8 additional checks rather than 6. Definitely something worth investigating. Quick acknowledgement to this incredible community. Even during sessions when I cannot personally get to every single comment and question, the people here consistently step up and help one another out. They share their knowledge, they respond to fellow viewers, they fill in the gaps. We genuinely have the most supportive and engaged community of any channel in this space, and I appreciate every one of you. Now here is a video question that was submitted. Can I collect on my ex-spouse's Social Security record at the same time as collecting on my own? Or alternatively, can I begin collecting on his record when I turn 62 next year, and then hold off on my own benefits until I reach 67 or 70 and switch at that point? No, that is not how the system works. When you file for benefits, a rule called deemed filing kicks in, which requires you to apply for every benefit you are currently eligible for at the time of filing. You file on your own record first, and if your full benefit amount turns out to be less than half of your ex-spouse's full benefit amount, you receive the difference as an additional payment. But you cannot selectively choose one benefit over the other while both parties are living. There was a filing strategy prior to 2015 that allowed something resembling this, commonly referred to as file and suspend. But that option was eliminated and is no longer available. The one legitimate exception involves surviving spouse benefits. If your ex-spouse has passed away, you can file for survivor benefits while continuing to let your own retirement benefit grow, and then switch to your own at a later date. But with a living ex-spouse, that kind of flexibility simply does not exist within the current rules. Hey Eric, great to see you in the comments today. Eric raises a really important point about Medicare, Medicaid, and community assistance programs like Meals on Wheels and CHIP, all facing very serious financial pressure in the current environment. He is encouraging everyone to register and make sure they vote in their upcoming local and state elections. And that is genuinely important advice. There are 36 gubernatorial elections on the calendar this year alone. States are going to find themselves in extremely difficult positions, particularly around Medicaid and SNAP, as federal funding flowing to states is being dramatically cut back. Hundreds of billions of dollars are effectively being redirected away from ordinary Americans, lower-income households, people living with disabilities, and children. States are going to struggle to absorb those losses, and politicians will attempt to deflect by suggesting the savings come from removing undocumented individuals from Medicaid. But federal law already explicitly prohibits undocumented individuals from receiving Medicaid benefits. Some states independently chose to fund health coverage for undocumented residents using their own state dollars, but that is an entirely separate matter from the federal program itself. On that note, I am currently putting together a resource I am hoping to finalize today. It is a cheat sheet covering retirement, disability, Medicare, Medicaid, spousal benefits, and surviving spouse benefits. Once it is complete, I will post it in the video description or in the comments. I am also building a companion cheat sheet focused specifically on debunking the most common myths and misleading claims that circulate in this space.
The purpose is to give you something concrete to reference when you are speaking with elected officials or calling a governor's office, so that when a politician delivers one of their standard misleading talking points, you have the documented rebuttal right in your hand. You will be able to say, "Actually, that is myth number 6 on my list, and here is what the actual data shows." That is exactly the kind of practical tool people need to hold their representatives accountable. I am aiming to have it ready today, and will make sure it is available for everyone as soon as it is finished.